fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porch Light Letters podcast number 2390. How do I interpret gaps between records? Oh, this is one of these things. This is where I like to work, between the records. So silence in the records is not an absence of life. So gaps often reflect movement. If a person disappears from records in one town and appears later elsewhere, something changed. They may have moved for work, marriage, an opportunity. For example, a laborer missing from a city records during an economic downturn may have temporarily relocated for seasonal work. The other ones that you can find too is that people may have moved from their own address and moved in with family or friend, usually family, because of economic hardships and things. So gaps can signal disruption or hardship. Periods without documentation can reflect instability such as illness, financial struggles, or displacement. Families facing eviction or loss often left little formal trace during those times. A missing census entry may reflect temporary housing or living with relatives. And sometimes you can find these, if you know who the family is, if you've got who the if there's a family that you're looking for, do they have any siblings or parents? So go look at the census reports for those parents and the parents and the siblings to see maybe they've gone there. Maybe they're staying in with them. So have a look at that. They may also be missing from the census because they could be on vacation, visiting with family. So they may show up on the census report there as well. So have a look for those. Records only capture what required documentation. So many ordinary life events were never recorded. Everyday survival, informal work, and domestic life rarely appeared in official sources. A quiet decade in the records may simply reflect routine living without major legal or administrative events, with the exception of a decade, because the census reports were done every 10 years. In the UK, they were done on the years ending in 1, and the US years ending in 0. And some states did state census that ended in 5, which are really cool ones to go back and have a look at, because they can help fill in that gap between the two 10-year gaps, the decade census, the federal census. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my head. I can't talk today. Mind you, I did have very little sleep last night. I will admit that. The wind and the rain kept me up last night. We had winds overnight that were sustaining at around 50 kilometers an hour with gusts up to 80, maybe 85. And we had rain going with it. And it was coming from the direction where my bedroom window is. So it was hitting my bedroom window all night. And there's a slight opening in my window. So the wind was whistling through there every now and again. So the brain hasn't had a full night of sleep, so it's operating a little sketchy. But anyway, back to that doesn't have nothing to do with what we're talking about. So yes, so look at the year in 5. I had one client, we were looking for her great-grandmother and great-grandfather. They got married the year after a federal census had been done, and they were divorced before the next federal census was done. Thankfully, they were in New York State that did a census on the years ending in 5, and we happened to capture them there because it was a year before they got their divorce. So sometimes those 5-year ones can reveal a lot. Also, too, you've got newspapers that can help you get in and look at those gaps as well, because they may not have been part of a major legal or administrative event, but they could have been part of a local community event that was taking place, and they might be mentioned in the newspaper there. So keep an eye out for the newspapers. Have a look at them. If you're looking at an obituary for one of your ancestors, go to the front page. What was taking place in that area during that time when your ancestor died? If there's a birth announcement, same thing. What happened when your great-great-grandfather was being born? What was going on? What was the headline news on the day that he was around his birth date? If there's a marriage notice in the newspaper, what was going on around the time that they got engaged? Now, here's the thing with engagement notices. You may either get the engagement notice in the newspaper, you may also get a marriage notice in the newspaper. 2 different things. The engagement is the parents announcing that their daughter has now been engaged to whoever the groom is, and what his parents' name were, because I put son of blah, 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 blah. So you've got really good information there. You've got the parents' names, you've got the bride's name, you've got the groom's parents' names and the groom's name. And they sometimes they may say youngest daughter or second son or oldest daughter. They may put in there the birth order of that child, which is very helpful because then you know if you've got to look for siblings above or below them, you've got that covered as well. The marriage announcement is very different. They are already married, and it is letting people know that they got married. So the engagement announcement is, hey, we just got engaged. We're planning on getting married. And they may even put in there when the wedding's going to take place. The marriage announcement says, hey, we got married. Woohoo! Let's go have a party. And it'll have basically the same information as the engagement notice, but with the exception of the date that they got married. They may even go into a little more detail. It could just be a simple couple of lines, or they may go into a little more detail, like who was the best man, who was the maid or matron of honor, who were the bridesmaids, who were the groomsmen, what the bride was wearing, what the bridesmaids were wearing, what the maid of honor was wearing, what the groom was wearing, what the groomsmen were wearing, what the best man was wearing. And then it may even get even bigger where it lists all the guests. Like these are the relatives that attended. And then these are the friends that attended. And it may go into more description about what they were wearing, where they got married, the reception venue, what was on the menu. You know, you can go from just a couple of lines to a full-page article on a marriage announcement. And that means that on the wedding announcement means marriage, wedding announcement. And that just tells you that they got married. But what's really cool about the bigger ones is they list relatives. And sometimes they will list like the aunt of the bride or the groom of the aunt of the groom and they usually, if they put the aunt of the bride, if there's another name with it, that means that the uncle married into the family. So sometimes you can get family connections out of that as well. So where am I up to? So this often matters because gaps often point to change, and change reveals story. We love stories. Yes, we love stories. So your practical takeaway for today is treat missing years as clues and investigate what might explain them. Are they on a shipping manifest? Were they in the zero federal census? Were they on that one, but they're missing from the next one, the next federal census? Maybe they moved. Maybe they immigrated. Maybe they went overseas. And if you're living in another country where your ancestors came to, maybe that's the time that they left. Like I know my second great grandmother and her son, who was my great grandfather, they left the UK. Let me get this right. They were on the 1881 census, but they were not on the 1891 census for England because they had immigrated out to New Zealand after the 1881 census. I think it was like 1882 they finally arrived in New Zealand. So yeah, I already knew that. So I was able to explain that missing year and why they went on the 1891 English census. So remember, your practical takeaway, treat missing years as clues and investigate what might explain them. And if you want help interpreting record gaps, send us a private message and let's set up a 30-minute, no obligation, free discovery call with you to help you get you on the path to interpreting record gaps. And with that, our closing thought is silence in records still speaks. There's a whole bunch of other records that could go get checked, like medical records, military records, newspaper articles, land deeds, land records, wills, probate files. My mind is going blank. Tax records, Social Security index. When that came in, let's see what else is there. There's a whole slew of records that I actually have a checklist somewhere. I should pull that out and do a giveaway with it. But anyway, that's it. I'm out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening. I may be a little late tomorrow because we have the movers here tomorrow. So my stuff is getting delivered tomorrow morning, supposedly at 9 o'clock in the morning. It could be later in the day. So my goal is to be online at 6 p.m. Pacific, but I might be a little late depending on how the unpacking's going and how accessible my desk and laptop is going to be. But with that, we're out of here. Have a